Hey everyone, welcome to Simon Pascal Says. I'm your host, Paul Simon. I've got Dustin Pascal here, lawyers here at Simon Pascal. Today we're going to talk about the issue of, is it illegal for employers to discriminate against employees based on weight and height? So just kind of have a little discussion here, Dustin. So I guess kind of just generally, is that illegal for employers to do?
Yeah, so in a classic legal answer, the answer is yes and no, really, at the end of the day. Actually, I was just giving a presentation on this earlier this week to a group, but at the end of the day, height and weight are not listed under Title VII at a federal level or Chapter 21 at the Texas level as protected categories under the law that you can't discriminate on. Now, where it comes into play is, do height and or weight implicate a different area of protection under the law, namely the Americans with Disabilities Act? Because at some level, weight can become large enough that now we've got obesity, which very well might be protected under the ADA if it substantially limits a major life activity. Or in the inverse, if someone's got extreme weight loss to the sense that maybe they are anorexic or something, and then that's going to be protected under the ADA. And same thing with height. At some levels, the question becomes, are you short enough that you're protected under the law when it comes to the Americans with Disabilities Act? So in and of itself, no. From a standpoint of maybe a disability that yields some protection, yes, but then there's a whole host of other things that come into play.
Yeah, and you've also got, in this scenario, a sex plus discrimination. Wouldn't you agree, in terms of if an employer says, or there's harassment based on a woman being heavy, but they don't have issue with men being heavy, or same with height, commenting on a height of a woman because it's not as common as the height of a man, it may be a gender discrimination type of claim there. Sure. That you can see.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely the case. You can't treat men and women differently with respect to the terms and conditions of their employment if you're going to allow heavy men but not heavy women, or tall men but not tall women. Certainly that comes into play. And yeah, the comments of women aren't supposed to be tall. I mean, at that point, it's basically stereotyping a gender, and once you start stereotyping, that can start to roll into the realm of microaggressions, and microaggressions, enough of them, can start to rise to the level of harassment.
Yeah, and as Dustin mentioned, in terms of that there's not a prohibited law in federal or Texas related to height and weight, that's not necessarily the case for every state. For example, New York has laws that outlaw discrimination based on height and weight. Michigan has laws related to discrimination based on weight. So especially when we're in this age of remote workers, you really, and typically the law of the state where the worker is located is the law that applies. So you need to be mindful of where is the employee, what can I or can I not do. As we kind of wrap this up, Dustin, I mean, obviously we're talking about what the law says you can and cannot do. Mm-hmm. Often we work with HR, and that's more of a best practices. Mm-hmm. What should employers do? Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, how would you say employers should handle situations where an employee says, I feel like I'm being discriminated or harassed based on my height or weight?
Yeah, I mean, you always want to look into those and determine if it's something that rises to the level of discrimination. I mean, the best practice is to just treat height and weight in any kind of category as if it is protected under the law, because at the end of the day, do you want to be known as an employer that's discriminating based on those categories, even though it's allowed, because you're not going to be viewed as a good workplace. So always treat them that way. The last thing I would add is we don't want to go so far as to scare employers in the sense that, well, hey, I want to have a health plan, or I want to offer gym memberships, or I want to do this or that. That's not going to be targeting someone based on weight, as long as you're offering it company-wide. Now, if you go to all of the heavy people and say, hey, I got a special program for you, now it's going to start to look like you're targeting people based on their weight. But company-wide, if you say, hey, we really have an initiative to have a healthy workplace, here's some things we offer, no issues there. So don't be scared away from doing that as an employer.
Perfect. So that wraps up this discussion today on whether or not it's illegal to discriminate based on height and weight. Tune in next time at Simon Pascal Says.